Hi everybody, and today I'm looking at the Nikon motor drive made for the F camera, and it actually came out the same year as the camera in 1959. There was two versions. This is the F36, which can hold up to a 36 exposure roll of film, and there's also an F250, which is exactly the same as regards the back, but there is then also two bulk holders at the side that can hold up to a 250 exposure roll of film. Now, when it was first introduced, it came with a corded or portable battery pack, and it looked like this. So this is what originally came out with the motor drive, and basically it connects via a cable which was 1 meter in length to the motor drive, plugs into the battery pack. This takes 8 C batteries, and on the battery pack is a control for operating the shutter and advancing the film with it. You've got a lock, a single and a continuous mode. You could also get, I believe, a 10 meter cable for this, so you could actually use it from quite a distance. But that was what was available when the drive came out, but lots of photographers weren't very happy with that system. The cable used to get tangled up and everything, and it wasn't an easy way to use the camera, although there is a firing button on the back of the drive as well. So a third-party company in 1964 produced a cordless battery pack that fitted to the bottom of the F36, and that was called a PowerCon, and it was very popular, and so Nikon soon got to work on producing their own, and they brought out their own cordless battery pack for the drive in 1966, which is a lot better. Obviously, it makes it a complete unit. There's no cables, and it has a firing button on the top of the battery pack as well, so you can use it like a normal camera. So obviously that was a lot better. The other thing you need, two more things you need a connector that connects the cordless battery pack to the motor drive, and the other important thing is a specific base plate on the camera, because the standard they didn't come with this base plate. It's called a motor drive base plate, and what you do is, to check if you've got one fitted, because there's quite a few Fs have them fitted, remove your camera back, slide it off, and what you need to do is look at the base plate, which is this. I've already took the screws out, that's why it's loose, and the motor drive one has two holes here, which you can see, on there and one there, and it's those that interact with the motor drive. In the bottom of the motor drive, these two pins here are the ones that interact with those holes in the base plate, and the other thing that works is this control here that spins round and controls the advance on the camera. So you need to ensure you've got one of these base plates fitted before you can obviously use the drive, and if you haven't, you need to buy one, obtain one and fit it, and you have to be careful when you fit them, because it's very easily to fit them incorrectly. I'll just show you what I mean. On the bottom of these base plates is a rocker little lever, as you can see, and you need to ensure that this side of the lever with the lip on needs to go underneath this plate on the F. What happens a lot of times is it goes above, and then you find that the shutter doesn't fire on the F, which obviously we don't want. So to help you fit the base plate, Nikon suggests you move the control on around the shutter button from A advance to R for rewind, and you'll see that when you do that, it lifts that plate up, as you can see. Lifts the plate up, which makes it a lot easier to fit this base plate. So when you fit it, like I say, just ensure the rocker switch is that way with that lower part down, and then it should be fairly easy then to move it into position, drop it on, and you can usually tell because you can actually see this end, that little lever, rocker lever, you can see the end of it there from this hole. And the way to check is if it's fitted correctly. Hold the base plate firmly, put the control back to A for advance, and if the F5 advances and fires the shutter correctly, then you know the base plate's fitted correctly. So then you could put the screws back in. So that's just something you need to know about. So if you've got the base plate fitted, you've got, just remove the back from your F as normal. You know where you put the film. So at this stage, if you wanted to run a film through your camera, fit a film first before fitting the motor drive, and you just fit the motor drive back like a normal back. Just need to put the open it up. There we go. Alright. So just put the back onto the camera, slide it into the normal grooves on the back and push it up. Now this one is a bit stiff, as you can see it's got a bit of wear here, which it was like when I brought it. It was quite a bit bent. I've managed to straighten it a bit better, so it's not quite as stiff, but it's still a bit stiff when it gets to the top there. So push it in, and then you need to tighten the locking nut on the bottom. So that's the actual motor drive fitted, and I will point out to you, it's not, don't try and stand the camera up with the lens fitted in with the drive, just the drive fitted, because it's very unbalanced, as you can see. The other thing you need is obviously the battery fitting. Now if you had the portable pack, you would plug the cable into there and sling that over your shoulder and away you go that way. But say I've got the cordless one, so what you do with the cordless one is you fit the connector first, and this is very important. If you buy one of these cordless packs off of eBay, make sure you get this connector or it's useless. So with this you just plug the connector into the drive, just put it fairly straight like that, and then you need to fit the battery pack, and you see this is the connector to the pack, that in there. So what you do is just slot that into the connector, and you can position the battery pack so it's over your tripod socket. So locate that, that's it. Now I've located that, and then what I found is the best thing to do is I put my thumb on this connector here, hold them together, because I think that's obviously a weak point for a connection. So hold them together and then tighten up the screw with the aluminium coin so it doesn't mark it. So tighten that up fully, and you've got a nice connection there to the motor drive. The other thing you need to do, if you've got this later battery pack, they fitted this pin which makes it more stable. What you do is you push this pin in, and you can see it makes contact with the F. So push the pin in, turn it clockwise, and it tightens up onto the body of the F, so it makes it a firmer grip, and you've got much less chance of breaking this by pressing it hard as well. The cordless battery pack has its own release button on top with a locking option, and its own selection of what drive mode you want, either single or continuous. And also on the motor drive itself there's also a release button here, again with its own locking single drive or continuous settings, and these work independently. So you could have one locked and the other set to a mode on that button, or you could have, say, this back one set to single drive and the top button set to continuous, so you can quickly flick between the different modes. And also I will point out the shutter button on the camera still works as well, so you can always use that option. There is a frame counter on the back of the drive, and this doesn't count upwards, it counts downwards. So after fitting your film, you would set that to the number of exposures of the film, and the way you do that is you push your finger on this dial and turn in the direction of the arrow. So let's say you've got a 36 exposure film. Now what I would probably do before setting that is I would put the film in and make sure you get to the first frame, which is the pointer on 0 on your top counter, which obviously still counts upwards, and then I would set this counter to 36, so it starts counting down. And the reason for the counter on the drive is because when it gets to the end you want it to stop, and that's what happens when it counts down and it gets to 0. The drive will actually stop and won't fire any more shots. The reason being it could possibly tear the film, which we don't want. So that's what the counter can be used for. Another thing for the counter, what you could do is if you just want to burst consecutive shots of, say, 6 shots, you could set that to 6, set it to continuous, knowing that it would only fire those 6 shots, so you're not overrun. So I'm just going over the modes and the different speeds. You see you've got different settings on the back, which I'll go through. In single mode, you can set both if you wish, both options to S for single, that rocker switch to single, unlock the top one, and then you can fire the shutter and advance the film using those 2 buttons. And you can use all the shutter speeds in single drive mode from B for bulb, but if you use bulb you do have to have the mirror raised. But all the other speeds from 1 second to 1/1000th of a second can be used in single drive mode. But you do have to bear in mind that if you're using shutter speeds below 1/60th of a second, then you should ensure that when you fire the button you need to hold it down in long enough for the shutter to finish its cycle. Something that's easily not done if you're not careful, you're not thinking what shutter speed you've got set. So in normal drive mode, say I've got 1/2 of a second, firing singly, it's firing the, I've actually got my mirror locked up at the moment, I've got to raise it down, there we go, so that's the mirror going up and down, firing singly. And as I say, if you want to set a slower shutter speed, say of 1/2 a second, just make sure rather than just pressing it and releasing it quickly, you have to press it down and hold it sufficiently for the shutter to complete its cycle, like so, before it advances the film. And as I say, you can use the one on the back as well, it does exactly the same function. And you also have consecutive shooting, so you could set the switch to consecutive, set that one to consecutive as well if you wish. Oh, I forgot to mention, in single drive mode Nikon recommends setting the speed control to H for high because it gives you less vibration, but in consecutive mode you can set any of these options from L for low, M1, M2 which is medium 1, medium 2 to high, and you get different frame rates. It's 2 frames per second in low, then it goes 2.5, 3 to a maximum of 4 frames per second in high, but there is some restrictions. First of all, in continuous mode, in any mode, you can't select a shutter speed lower than 1/8 of a second or the shutter not complete its cycle. And there are other restrictions, as you see. Select higher speeds, say 3 frames per second, you have to have the shutter set at 1/25 of a second at least, unless you raise the mirror. See, there's two different options. With the mirror raised, you can select a minimum shutter speed of 1/30 of a second, and the highest mode, which is 4 frames per second, which I'll set it to. You can't use that at all with the mirror down or in the normal position. You have to have the mirror up, locked up, and then you need to have a shutter speed of at least 1/25 of a second, or it not work correctly. So set a shutter speed of 2/50 of a second, and I'm in continuous mode, in high, so I should be getting 4 frames per second. Soon go through a roll of film using that, obviously. Other thing you can do is you can connect a external power supply to the battery pack through that connection. I'm not sure if it's AC or DC or both. And you can also fit to the battery pack a remote shooting mode, so you can control it from a distance rather than using the buttons on the drive or pack. And I believe there's also an option for controlling it wirelessly as well. I will mention the cordless battery pack, which I may have mentioned earlier. I forgot. The cordless battery pack didn't come out till 1966, whereas I say the drive came out in '59 with the camera, but in 1964 a third party company produced a cordless battery pack called the PowerCon, which attached to the bottom of the drive like this one, and it was very popular, so Nikon soon got onto the bandwagon and produced their own, and I say this one came out in 1966. So there you go, that's a look at the F36 motor drive and battery pack. So it's been a bit long and extensive, but I wanted to try and cover everything I could. I will mention there is a lot of different variations of the drive itself, probably 6 or 7 different variations, and different variations of the battery pack, but I'm not going to even attempt to try and cover any of them. But hopefully I've covered what you've seen quite extensively. I don't think there's anything else on the web going into that much detail. So hope you've enjoyed this video. I think it's a great looking thing. It's not something I'll probably use in my own photography. I'm not into sports, and it's quite noisy, as you can hear, but I think it looks absolutely amazing. So thanks for watching this video. Please subscribe if you've enjoyed it, and hope to be making another one soon. Catch you later.